Welcome back to Quietly Secure. Last time we explored why we trust websites. We talked about domain names, secure connections, certificates, and the technology that quietly works in the background every time we browse the internet. But today, I'd like to look at something entirely different. Not at computers, not at software, not at the internet itself. Instead, I'd like to look at us. Because despite all the advances in cybersecurity, despite stronger passwords, better encryption, multi-factor authentication, and increasingly sophisticated detection systems, one of the most effective attack methods hasn't changed at all: people. If you've ever looked at a phishing email and thought, who would fall for that? The answer is probably far more people than we'd like to admit. And not because they're unintelligent, not because they're careless, but because scams rarely rely on technical knowledge. They rely on psychology. Today, we're going to explore 4 of the most common tools used by scammers: urgency, authority, familiarity, and emotional manipulation. Once you begin to recognize these patterns, you start seeing them everywhere, not just in scams, but in advertising, politics, social media, and everyday persuasion. Think about your average day. Emails arrive, messages appear, notifications light up your phone, someone rings your doorbell, a parcel is expected, work is busy, family needs your attention. Very few of us are making carefully considered decisions every minute of the day. We're operating on habit. Our brains are designed to filter information quickly. Most of the time, that's incredibly useful. If we analyze every email, every notification, and every decision with complete attention, we'd never get anything done. Scammers understand this. They're not trying to fool the careful version of you sitting quietly with a cup of tea. They're trying to catch the busy version of you, the distracted version, the version making dozens of tiny decisions every hour. That's where psychology becomes far more important than technology. Urgency. Perhaps the oldest trick in the book. Make someone believe they don't have time to think. You have 24 hours, your account has been suspended, immediate action is required, final warning, your parcel will be returned. Urgency works because it changes the way our brains make decisions. Normally we would evaluate, we compare, we pause, but introduce a countdown and suddenly we're reacting instead of thinking. It's worth asking an interesting question. Why would a genuine organisation need you to panic? Your bank isn't improved because you reply within 3 minutes. The electricity provider doesn't become safer because you click immediately. Real organisations generally want problems solved. Scammers want decisions rushed. There's an important difference. Whenever somebody removes your opportunity to think, it's worth asking why. As humans, we naturally trust authority. It's one of the ways society functions. Doctors, police officers, teachers, banks, government departments, employers. Where someone appears to represent authority, we instinctively lower our guard. Scammers know this. This is why they pretend to be organisations you've heard of: HMRC, your bank, Microsoft, Amazon, Royal Mail, even your own employer. Sometimes they'll copy logos, sometimes they'll use convincing language, sometimes they'll spoof phone numbers so they appear genuine. None of that guarantees authenticity. It simply borrows trust that somebody else has already earned. Authority doesn't just come from uniforms or logos. It comes from confidence, a confident voice, technical language, a professional-looking email, a website that appears polished. We're naturally inclined to believe people who sound certain, but confidence and honesty are not the same thing. One can exist without the other. Familiarity. There's another reason scams work. We trust things we've seen before. Think about websites you visit regularly, your bank, your supermarket, streaming services, social media. You rarely study every detail. You recognise the colours, the layout, the logo, the overall feel. Your brain says, I've seen this before, and that's usually enough. Scammers don't need to invent something new. They imitate what already feels familiar. Perhaps the login page looks almost identical, the branding is close enough, the wording feels right. Even if something's slightly different, our brains will often fill in the gaps. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as familiarity bias. We're more comfortable with things that appear familiar, even when we've never consciously verified them. Again, this isn't stupidity, it's efficiency. Our brains are constantly looking for shortcuts. Most of the time, those shortcuts serve us remarkably well. Perhaps the most powerful tool of all isn't technology. It's emotion, fear, excitement, curiosity, greed, sympathy, love, hope. Almost every successful scam begins by making you feel something. Fear that you're losing access, excitement that you're winning something, curiosity about a message, sympathy for someone asking for help. Even romance scams don't begin with money, they begin with connections. When emotion increases, careful thinking often decreases. This isn't a flaw, it's simply how human beings work. Our emotions help us make decisions every day. The problem is, they can also be influenced. A scammer doesn't need to convince your logical mind. They only need your emotional mind to take control for a few moments. Perhaps the most dangerous sentence we can say is, I'd never fall for that. The reality is, every scam isn't designed for everyone. Just as advertisements target different audiences, scams do too. Some target older adults, some target students, some target business owners, some target parents, some exploit loneliness, others exploit curiosity, and some exploit generosity. If you've never fallen victim to one particular scam, that doesn't mean you're immune. It probably just means it wasn't designed with you in mind. Security isn't about believing we're impossible to deceive. It's about accepting we're human. One of the biggest misconceptions is that scams only affect people who don't understand technology. This simply isn't true. Doctors, engineers, lawyers, IT professionals, scientists, all have fallen victim to scams. Knowledge doesn't remove emotion. Experience doesn't eliminate distraction. Being intelligent doesn't stop you having a busy day. The best security professionals I know don't believe they're immune, but they do believe they're human, and because of that, they built habits that compensate. We've talked before about taking a pause. I'd like to expand on that. Instead of asking, is this a scam? Try a different question. What emotion is this message trying to create? Am I being rushed? Am I being flattered? Am I being frightened? Am I being made curious? Am I feeling guilty? Once you identify the emotion, the message often becomes much easier to evaluate. It's surprisingly difficult for manipulation to remain invisible once you've recognized the technique. One of the ideas that runs throughout this podcast is that good security is usually quiet. It's rarely dramatic, and it's not about constantly expecting the worst. Nor is it about distrusting everyone you meet online. It's about slowing the world down just enough to let your judgment catch up with your emotions. Scammers thrive on speed. Security thrives on reflection. Those extra few seconds rarely feel important, but they often make all the difference. Technology will continue to evolve. Artificial intelligence will make scams more convincing. Websites will become more realistic. Voices may become harder to distinguish from the real thing. But beneath all that, the psychology will remain remarkably consistent. It will be urgency, authority, familiarity, and emotion. These techniques have influenced human decision making for centuries. The internet has simply given them a new stage. Understanding them doesn't mean you'll never encounter a scam, but it does make you a little more likely to recognize when someone's trying to influence how you think rather than simply informing you. And sometimes, the small moments of awareness are enough. Thank you for listening to Quietly Secure. Next time, we'll explore a topic that's becoming increasingly relevant in the age of artificial intelligence and digital media. That's the deepfakes and synthetic media. How do you know whether the person you're seeing, hearing, or even speaking to is real? Until then, stay curious, stay calm, and as always, stay quietly secure.